What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and the Colorado swap project. In this one, I am going to show you guys the process of how we got this 270,000 mile stock 4-cylinder junk Colorado motor out of here. And then we got this beauty of a 6-liter LS V8 in here. So stay tuned. I will show you guys the process of how we got this puppy in here. Alright, so what you guys just saw was a quick time lapse. I had a little bit of time a couple days ago, I think it was 2 days ago now, to start getting the motor pulled. I pulled out all of the, I'll call it easy stuff from up top. So I got rid of the battery, the tray, I cracked into the fuse box, disconnected the harness, took that out. I also took out the wiper fluid and coolant reservoir, air box, intake, and then unplugged a bunch of stuff. So the harness is pretty much all unplugged from this side of the engine and engine bay. From this side, it's really hard to get to the harness down there. So that's probably the next piece to try and get the harness completely removed. But I have a few hours today. I'm going to try to tackle get all the cooling stuff, so get the radiator drain, get the radiator shroud out, and that will give me a bunch more clearance in there, and then I can hopefully get the rest of the harness from that side. All right, quick update. The motor is basically ready to pull. Since last time I updated, I didn't do too much. I was able to get the AC stuff out, so I got the condenser out, got a couple of the AC lines out. Underneath, I had to take off the bracket that supports the transmission. Let's see. So it was a bracket that went right about there. So the trans at this point is completely free. A little bit hard to see. I have it held up by a jack stand. There we go. Trans is completely free, held up by a jack stand. One of the issues I'm having is the drive shaft won't come loose from the back. So I think my plan here is to lift the motor, slide it forward. That'll get the drive shaft out of the back of the trans. Then I will drop the trans, and then from there I will drop the motor. So I'll try to set up a time lapse of the actual motor removal process, but we're pretty much good to go here. Have to unbolt the mounts and lift it up, and that should be it. This thing will be out. What is up? Okay, so you guys just saw in the time lapse there, that was a buddy of mine and we removed the motor. Everything went pretty smooth. I honestly did not do a very good job of filming, but everything is pretty straightforward. I basically just a huge process of unplugging everything I possibly could, draining all the fluids that I could, and then, you know, getting the engine lift hooked up and pulling it. The biggest pain was definitely getting the transmission out. I did not follow my own sort of instructions or my own must-have rule of draining the transmission fluid before I took the trans out. I don't know what I was thinking, but it spilled out the back of the trans all over the ground. I was covered in trans fluid, and my garage now smells just like gear oil. So yeah, that's that. But everything's done. Trans came out just fine. Really not much else to highlight. It was pretty clean. I didn't have to cut wires. I didn't have to cut hoses or anything. I was able to get everything unplugged and unhooked as it should. So engine bay is now a clean slate. Basically, I'm just going to spend some time cleaning the engine bay up, trying to get as clean as I possibly can before the new parts start going in. So I will show probably before and after. I may show some of the process of cleaning, and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to sort of delete out of the engine bay, but I'm going to try to clean up as much as I can, because not everything in here is needed with the new motor. So that is that. Engine bay is all cleaned up, definitely looking better. Not perfect. This is a 270,000 mile truck, as I mentioned, so I don't know if it will ever be perfect, but much better. I'll continue probably to clean little bits as I go. May do some touch-up paint on the battery tray. That's the only area that has some surface rust, so I think that will make it look a bit better. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Now I think I'm going to focus on the trans, so I'll show the process of getting that stripped down and starting to get the FABbot kit installed. quick update on the trans situation. You guys saw the time lapse of me cleaning it up a bit, putting the FABbot adapter plate on, and I think that's about as far as I got. Since then, off camera, I torqued those bolts down, all of them to 40 pound-feet, put a little blue Loctite on all of them as well, and then moved to the bell housing and the clutch slave kind of test fitment. Bell housing, so outside of, I'll get to the clutch slave and kind of what I had to do there in a second, but I also noticed that these dowels were slightly hitting, so I had to clearance it just a little bit on each one of those dowels, just so they didn't come in contact with the bell housing. That could have been a me issue, so no fault on the kit. I just found it a bit easier to get the bell housing on. On top of that, so depending on the setup that you want to run, you might have to drill holes in the side of your bell housing, which is what I did. So the clutch slave, I'll show that when it's all together. There's a remote bleeder, which you can either route through these two holes on the side of the adapter plate. This would be for clutch bleeder. This would be for the actual clutch feed line. I opted to actually drill the holes in the side because I'm using the stock Colorado clutch feed line. So the bleeder will go through here, the feed line will go through here. This was a bit of a pain. I had to drill a pilot hole and then use the a hole saw bit to finish it out. And this one, because I was on a ridge, I actually ended up having to use an angle grinder, cut a slot, and then use a series of files and my Dremel just to grind everything down. But got a pretty good finish when all was said and done. Looks half decent, and it should be pretty functional. So the stock clutch feed should, I was able to find a post for someone to do the same thing. It should pretty much mate right up and then be able to go into the slave cylinder right there. So that is it for right now. At this point, I'm going to just clean the mating surfaces, and then the bell housing will go on. I'll torque the bell housing down, and then I'll show the process of getting the slave on and getting that torqued down as well. And then this should be, outside of me cleaning up the trans, cleaning up the back of the trans at least, this should be good to go on the engine. So yeah, let me show the rest of this and then I'll update when I'm done. You saw me install the pilot bearing. That went in super easy. I had a big socket, I don't know what size it was, 30 something. I think it was for an axle nut on one of my German cars, and that worked pretty perfectly to drive this thing in. I put the clutch alignment tool in here, bearing feels good, so happy about that. I am at a stopping point though, which sucks. The flywheel bolts that I have are too long. They go in there and they bottom out. So now I have to go figure out what flywheel bolts to buy. But yeah, kind of sucks that I did not know that the flywheel bolts I had were going to be too long. So live and you learn. All right, got some new flywheel bolts. These are from ICT. I know I probably should have went ARP, but these were on Amazon. They were 20 bucks and it was 1-day shipping. So I got them super quick. You can see the difference in length. So the left is obviously the automatic flywheel bolts from the LY6, and then the right is the ICT bolts. I threaded them in. They don't bottom out, so these should work fine. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is the depth of the head. I think it'll be fine, but they're definitely a bit chunkier than the factory ones. So should be good to go. I will get these torqued down and then we'll move on to the clutch install. on, bolted up. It was a bit of a pain to wrestle into place, as per usual with these. I was able to get it in place after a fair amount of wrestling. These are the bolts that are included in the FABbot kit, which are nice and new. So got those all in and torqued down. Everything fits well. On top of that, I off camera cleaned up the trans a little bit. So this thing is now ready to go. So we have the FABbot kit on, clutch installed, LS1 flywheel, the new slave installed, and you know, all bolted together with now mated up with the engine. So this thing is basically ready to go in. I'm waiting on the trans mount in the mail. It's supposed to get here tomorrow, and then I'm hoping within the next 2-3 days I will get this thing in the car. So I'm pumped. Everything went together smoothly. Definitely excited to get this whole new unit in. You guys saw me putting the motor in on a time lapse. Tried to be slick and put it in with all the accessories on, intake manifold, well, not all the accessories, but the intake manifold on, oil pan, trans, shifter, everything, and I just could not get it to go, even with the load leveler. So ended up taking the intake manifold off because I wanted to put, you know, it's a good idea to put new gaskets on it anyway. That gave me the clearance. I ended up taking the shifter off too. So shifter, intake manifold off. I was able to use the load leveler, level it out, get it in. Probably should have test fit the engine. I had issues on each side with the mount. You can see on that top left corner, I had to cut the ear off the factory motor mount location. And I also am not sure, but I ended up taking off the bottom cross member because the oil pan was like right there. So I may have to slightly notch that cross member. But long story short, motor's in, bolted on both sides, not tightened down. Now I got to go do the trans mount in the back. So everything looks pretty good so far, minus the couple issues that I mentioned. All right, so that is it. Motor's in. I have a lot to do in terms of odds and ends, so the next few videos is going to be probably packed with a lot of very little jobs that I need to tackle. I have a huge list of things. If anyone is in the Nashville, Tennessee area and needs a running 4-cylinder Colorado motor, 2.9, runs well, No issues that I know of. Let me know. I'll let it go pretty cheap. Or if you can figure out shipping, I guess I'd be willing to do that too. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. A lot of work to do, but definitely the heavy lifting is over. So I'm excited to get this thing buttoned up, and hopefully we'll get it driving soon. Thanks for watching.